Hello, hello. It is Topic Tuesday. My name is Jorie Houlihan. I am your guide for the dopamine deprived, and I come on here live every Tuesday at 1 o'clock p.m. Central Time to talk about something ADHD related for a few minutes. And today we are talking about the struggles with transitions. So, have you ever been on the couch or, lying in bed and you're totally aware that you need to get up, right? It's time to get up. Maybe to switch the laundry or go return an email or just, even go to bed or get out of bed. But it feels like you are trying to move a mountain when you do that. Okay, so that is not laziness. It may feel like it. It may look like it sometimes too, especially to outsiders, but it is not. It is actually how ADHD struggles with transition. So today we're going to talk about why shifting gears, so to speak, can feel so awful for a lot of us and what can hopefully help make it a little bit easier anyway. So first, let's talk about what is actually happening in the ADHD brain when this is happening. So transitions equals shifting gears, right? So I don't know how old any of you are, but I used to drive stick shift cars and when we have to switch tasks, it's like the clutch gets stuck, right? So you have to push the clutch in to shift the gear. But if the clutch gets stuck, your car is either going to go nowhere or it's going to, peter out. It's bad when it happens. And it's usually a big, expensive expense while we're at it. But that's a tangent. Anyway, so ADHD brains struggle with task switching because it requires executive function. You have to stop one task, start another task, as well as hold the plan in your working memory. Okay? All of these things are executive functions, and they're all executive functions we struggle with. You add to that the inertia piece, right? So ADHD brains love momentum. They love it. And once we're in motion, it's much easier to keep going. Once we are still, it is much harder to get going. And so again, our mental clutch just sticks, right? And so what does that look like in real life? So it can be struggling to get up from rest, right? Off the couch, off your bed, doom scrolling on your phone. It can be snapping at somebody when they interrupt because your brain can't let go of whatever it is you're focused on. Like a real quick way to put me in a bad mood is to interrupt me while I am, hyper focused. It's called interruption rage, actually. Um, it can look like delaying transitions between work and home or between one task or another task. Or it can be you just avoiding starting the task because you know that you're going to hit that point again, right? And then this very often creates shame. And that is because it looks like procrastination or resistance, and we feel like losers. And when it's just a neurological lag, really. Okay, so how can we improve this? We can improve this a few ways. So the first one is have an external cue. We are notorious for trying to hold everything in our brain, right? Like, when we have appointments, when if we're taking a break, when the break ends, all the things on the to-do list, because for whatever reason, we struggle with externalizing our thoughts. And I have talked about this before. Externalize your thoughts whenever possible. Now, with this one, you can use timers or alarms or even just have a friend ping you to be like, okay, break's over. But just something that will be a signal to shift, right? Instead of you having to remember it. Because when you have to remember all these things, it just causes overwhelm. And that will not be the thing that gets you moving. All right. You want to maybe bridge the gap with micro steps. And when I mean micro steps, I mean micro steps, right? So that means doing the smallest possible move towards the next task. So instead of cooking dinner, which for a lot of us is very overwhelming, it could simply be walk to the kitchen or even get off the couch. Something to get that inertia out of the way, to get you up and moving, right? And that is much easier to do than cook dinner, which is so much executive functioning. And for a lot of us, that's a big struggle. You want to pair transitions also with something that is kind of pleasant, right? So, like music or stretching or, even some kind of silly ritual, but you want to just add some dopamine to it because when we add dopamine to this, the transitions are much less painful. You also want to plan for like recovery zones, right? So I am one of those people, I really need transitions and I can't just go from one task to another like that. I have to have a break in there. So give yourself a 5 or 10 minute break. Time the break and know exactly what you're going to come back to do and no sitting. These are all my rules about taking breaks. However, when you can give yourself that 5 to 10 minutes, it makes it much easier for a lot of us. And it's not necessarily for everybody, but for a lot of us, it makes it much easier to transition from one type of task to another type of task. Okay. Um, some of you I know will, if you work out of the home, for example, when you come home, or even if you just like go to the grocery store, when you come home, I know a lot of you sit in your car for a few minutes. Why is that? You're giving yourself transition time between work person and home person, right? Or grocery store person, dealing with the grocery store to then having to deal with maybe your kids or, your spouse or even just your house, who knows? But that's built in transition time. I am one of the few people I know who's chronically early for everything, who has ADHD. And that is because I just realized this year I had unconsciously built in transition time. I don't like just showing up at a place and having to go right into the meeting or even just a lunch with a friend. I like having a few minutes to just chill. And then I can go in and I feel much more calm. Okay. And then lastly, name it when it's happening. All right. It's okay to say, this is a transition and my brain doesn't like it because it forces you to pause and also for you to just take the shame out of it. Like, yeah, my brain hates this. It is what it is, but my brain hates it. And I'm just going to give myself a minute here. Okay. When we can embrace a lot of these things, it takes so much of the shame out. I can't even tell you. Okay. So, struggling with transitions is very common with ADHD, and it doesn't mean that you're lazy. Like I said, it doesn't mean that you're avoiding life or entitled or any of the other things that we've been told or that we tell ourselves. And by the way, please stop being such a bully to yourself. We are our own worst bullies. And you know I'm right. All right. So it just means that your brain just needs a little extra support in those in between moments. Okay. So when we can name it, we can normalize it. And when you then add some simple tools to it, it just makes much, it makes it feel much less like a mountain we're trying to climb and a little bit more like a little anthill, or maybe it's something a little bigger depending on the task. Anyway, so what is one of the hardest transitions that you have to deal with currently? And what have you done to make task transitions a little bit easier for yourself? And I also wanted to let you know that I've been hearing from y'all and I've been listening. I am going to be starting a podcast. I'm very excited about this. It's not going to launch until like early mid-October, but I wanted to give you a heads up now. So if there are any topics that you really want me to cover or any type of ADHD person that maybe you would like me to interview, please put it in the comments. I'm open to all suggestions. Yeah, so I'm really excited about that. So anyway, that won't be until October, but like I said, if there's any topics you definitely want me to cover, any kind of ADHD professional or somebody that you know who could be really helpful, then let me know and I will see what I can do. All righty. All right. So until next Tuesday, have an amazing week. Just try one of the things that I mentioned here. Watch out for that all or nothing thinking. Try one of the things I mentioned here in an area where you tend to struggle with transitions and just see how it works for you. And remember, if it doesn't work for whatever reason, it does not mean you have failed. It just means that one doesn't work for you. There's nothing else to it. Okay. It is what it is. Okay. Awesome. All right. I will see you next Tuesday.